So, diving headfirst into this whole return to office thing, right? It feels like it's the hot topic everyone's buzzing about.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
You've sent us a mountain of stuff articles debating the whole thing, some pretty in-depth research reports, even people getting fired up on YouTube about it.
Yeah. Seems like everyone has an opinion on this one.
What's the game plan for our deep dive today? What are we hoping to uncover?
Well, I think we need to cut through all the hype and figure out what's really fueling this whole RTO push.
Right.
Is it really about boosting productivity? Are companies just trying to squeeze more profits?
Yeah.
Or is there something else going on beneath the surface?
Ooh, love that. Getting all philosophical. I'm into it.
We have to go deeper, right?
Exactly.
Beyond the headlines.
Okay, so first things first, we've got all these studies landing on our desk saying RTO isn't the magical productivity booster some CEOs seem to think it is.
Right, right.
One study even looked at, like, S&P 500 companies. Those aren't small potatoes.
No, they're not messing around.
And they found no significant jump in financial performance or market value after companies forced people back.
Yeah, and there's this really interesting study that came out in Nature, actually,
Yep.
by Nick Bloom.
Oh, yeah, I saw that one.
It really digs into these hybrid models,
Right.
the blend of office and remote work that everyone's been debating.
Okay, the hybrid thing, yeah.
And what's fascinating is they're finding that hybrid work is just as productive as being in the office full time.
Hold on. Equally productive.
Mm.
But what about all that talk about water cooler moments and spontaneous collaboration that supposedly only happens in person? That's what we always hear.
That's definitely the dominant narrative you hear, but the data challenges that assumption.
Huh. Okay.
And here's another interesting tidbit from the Bloom study.
Yeah.
They found hybrid setups actually lead to higher employee retention.
So companies are pushing people back to the office, potentially losing valuable employees in the process. And for what? No real productivity gains.
Seems like a bit of a head-scratcher, right?
It does make you wonder.
If it's not about churning out more widgets per hour, what's the real motivation here?
Right. What is it all about then?
Well, one theory that's been floating around is that it's all about those empty office buildings.
Yeah.
And those expensive leases companies are on the hook for.
Okay, so the bottom line is coming into play.
It's hard to ignore the financial side of things.
Think about Amazon. I mean,
Yeah.
they're pumping $1.5 billion into office leases while also facing this huge employee backlash against their 5-day in-office mandate.
Yeah. And the employees aren't exactly thrilled about it.
Doesn't exactly add up, does it?
It feels like a disconnect, for sure.
Shrink out.
But even with all that money on the line, I still get this feeling that there's something more at play here, the deeper reason behind these mandates.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it might boil down to control.
Control. Okay.
Some CEOs and maybe even some managers are really holding on to that old school mentality, the whole butts in seats equals productivity. They believe they can only truly manage or collaborate effectively if everyone is physically present.
Interesting.
Almost a sense of distrust in remote work or even the employees themselves.
Whoa, it's like some leaders are stuck in this pre-pandemic time warp,
Right.
unable to wrap their heads around this new way of working that, honestly, a lot of employees actually prefer.
And that resistance, that inability to adapt,
Yeah.
is causing some real friction.
Oh, sure.
We've seen CEOs make some pretty bold statements like, we're not asking you, we're not negotiating.
Wow, yeah.
That kind of top-down authoritarian approach is only going to fuel resentment.
It's like a recipe for disaster, especially when you consider how this impacts employees.
Yeah.
I mean, they're raising totally valid concerns, the impact on work-life balance, those soul-crushing commutes that eat into their personal time.
Right, right.
Even the toll it takes on their mental health to be forced back into a setting where they just don't feel comfortable anymore.
And there's data backing this up. It's
Yeah.
not just people complaining.
Okay.
Studies consistently show that remote and hybrid workers are generally happier, less stressed, and more likely to stay with their company.
So it seems pretty counterintuitive that pushing RTO could actually backfire on companies in the long run.
Right. It's counterproductive.
They risk alienating their workforce, driving morale down, and possibly even creating a talent drain as people seek out better opportunities elsewhere.
Exactly. The opposite of what they're hoping to achieve.
And then there's this whole other layer to consider that we haven't even touched on yet. The potential for what's being called quiet quitting.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
With employee satisfaction plummeting under this RTO pressure, could we see a surge in people just mentally checking out?
It's a real possibility, and it's not just quiet quitting we need to be thinking about.
What else?
There's also the potential for companies to use RTO as a form of quiet firing.
Why fire it?
It's basically pushing employees to quit instead of going through the hassle of formal layoffs.
Wow, so it's like a passive-aggressive way to manage your workforce?
In a way, yeah.
It all just seems so manipulative.
It makes you wonder if this whole RTO push is less about actual productivity or business needs
Yeah,
and more about power dynamics and maintaining control.
it's a power struggle for sure.
And this power struggle is playing out in a very complex landscape.
Right.
One crucial aspect we need to consider is how RPO disproportionately affects women.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, women often shoulder a larger share of caregiving responsibilities,
Right.
and they might have less flexibility when it comes to long commutes or strict office hours.
So are we looking at a situation where women who are already facing so many systemic challenges in the workplace
Yeah,
are further disadvantaged by these RTO mandates?
it's a valid concern.
I mean, it could set us back years in terms of gender equality.
Absolutely.
And it's not just about individual companies either, right? There are broader social implications to consider.
Exactly.
This isn't happening in a vacuum.
There are ripple effects that go beyond the office walls.
Yeah.
For instance, one researcher we came across suggested that companies with strong labor unions might be less likely to enforce these strict RTO mandates because of potential pushback from their employees.
Oh, that's interesting.
So could this whole situation lead to a surge in unionization as employees fight for their remote work options?
That's a fascinating possibility. It feels like this RTO trend is stirring up all sorts of unintended consequences.
Unintended or maybe intended in some cases.
Right.
It's
Wow.
hard to know for sure.
It's like this clash of values, power dynamics at play, and maybe even a potential shift in the entire labor landscape.
Definitely a lot to unpack there.
This deep dive is just getting warmed up, it seems.
But before we get too carried away with these bigger picture questions,
Okay.
maybe we should take a closer look at some specific anecdotes and strategies that are playing out in this whole RTO saga.
Yeah, let's bring it back down to earth with some real-world examples.
Ground the conversation a bit.
It'll help us understand how this is all playing out on the ground for both the companies and the employees caught in the middle of this.
Totally.
So, what have you got for us? What juicy stories did you dig up?
Well, let's circle back to Amazon for a second.
Okay, back to the behemoth.
Remember their super strict 5-day mandate. Some experts are speculating that it's actually a strategic move, almost a power play,
Okay.
to force employees into negotiating their way back to some semblance of flexibility.
So it's like this high-stakes negotiation game.
Yeah,
Using employees as bargaining chips.
it seems that way.
That's a pretty cynical approach, don't you think?
It's not exactly putting employee well-being front and center.
Makes you wonder if this is a common tactic among these big corporations.
It wouldn't surprise me.
It highlights this power imbalance between those at the top and the everyday employees.
And this disconnect between those in charge and their employees is a recurring theme in a lot of these stories.
Yeah.
Like this one about the CEO commute bias. There was this CEO who casually mentioned that he lives just 10 minutes away from the office,
Oh, wow.
while many of his employees are facing commutes of up to 3 hours each way.
3 hours.
It's almost comical, this disconnect.
It's crazy how out of touch some of these leaders are.
If you're not battling traffic for hours every day, it's easy to dismiss how much it impacts people's lives.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder if that lack of understanding is driving this RTO push, even when all the data suggests it's not the best approach.
Absolutely. But, not all the stories are doom and gloom.
Oh, right.
We also stumbled upon a story that really highlights the human side of remote work, the potential for connection and empathy, even when people are miles apart.
Always good to have a little bit of hope.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's the story?
It involves the CEO who sent a lavish gift basket to an employee's 7-year-old daughter.
Wait, a gift basket for a child? That's unusual.
Yeah, I know, right? But it gets better. He included this note thanking the daughter for being such an awesome part of our team.
Oh, well.
It was like he was acknowledging the sacrifices that families make when a parent works remotely.
That's pretty amazing.
And this simple act of kindness, it really cemented the employee's loyalty, and it highlights the importance of treating people like human beings.
Yeah, recognizing the whole person, not just the worker bee.
Exactly.
That's powerful.
I love that story. But then, as you were saying earlier, not every story has a happy ending.
Unfortunately, no.
We found this case that really exposes the contradictions and ironies of this RTO push.
Yeah, lay it on me.
It involves this environmental sustainability manager who was forced back to the office despite having no in-person team and facing a really long commute.
Oh no, talk about a slap in the face.
The person dedicated to reducing the company's carbon footprint,
Right.
now being forced to contribute to it,
That's ironic.
just to comply with this arbitrary mandate.
Undermines the whole thing they're working towards.
Talk about mixed messages.
Yeah.
And then there's Salesforce, a company known for its cloud-based solutions and flexible work arrangements.
They were all about remote work, weren't they?
Yeah, but then they did this big push to get employees back into the office, and part of their rationale was to help revitalize downtown San Francisco.
Revitalize San Francisco.
Yeah, it's like their corporate social responsibility initiative, I guess.
But hold on, is it really a company's responsibility to revitalize a city, especially if it comes at the expense of their employees' flexibility?
That's the question, isn't it? And does this set some dangerous precedent for other companies to follow suit?
It's slippery slope.
Who gets to decide what's more important, the needs of the city or the well-being of the employees?
Those are the tough questions we need to be grappling with.
It makes you wonder if these RTO mandates are being driven by factors that have very little to do with actual work or employee needs.
Right. It's not always so black and white.
And then to top it all off, the irony meter just explodes. And when you consider that Zoom, the very platform that made this whole remote work revolution possible,
Oh, yeah. Zoom, the poster child.
imposed an RTO mandate on their own employees?
The irony is palpable.
It's hard to take these mandates seriously when the companies pushing them don't even seem to believe in them themselves.
Actions speak louder than words.
It speaks volumes, for sure.
And we're just scratching the surface here.
Yeah, this is just the tip of the iceberg, isn't it?
We have so much more to unpack.
With what?
Well, we need to delve into the psychological nuances of remote work,
Okay.
explore the challenges and opportunities it presents.
And the future of the office itself.
Exactly.
So we've got a lot more to explore in this deep dive.
Buckle up. It's going to be a wild ride.
Sounds good to me.
Stay tuned.
I'm ready for part 2.
Yeah, it does feel like we're at this crossroads, this pivotal moment.
All right.
On one hand, you have these companies clinging to the past,
Yeah.
trying to cram everyone back into those pre-pandemic boxes.
Probably the way things were.
But on the other hand, you have this surge of innovation.
Yep.
You have people reimagining what the office could be,
Right.
or maybe even should be.
So are we witnessing the death of the traditional office as we knew it?
Yeah.
Or is it more like a metamorphosis, a chance for it to evolve into something better, something more aligned with how people actually want to work these days?
I don't think it's going to be a one-size-fits-all situation.
Right.
Different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, exactly.
But we are seeing some companies approach this as an opportunity,
Okay.
not as a crisis.
Okay, I like that.
They're transforming their offices into what they're calling collaboration hubs.
Collaboration hubs, okay.
Think of flexible workspaces, top-notch tech, and lots of areas designed for socializing.
So it's less about just showing up
Right.
and more about creating an environment where people actually want to be, where they want to work together.
Exactly.
It's like I don't know, like an adult playground for productivity.
Yeah, there's definitely that element of fun and choice.
Yeah.
But I think the deeper shift is in the company culture itself.
Okay.
It's about moving away from that butts and seats mentality and truly embracing outcomes. Trusting your employees to get the job done wherever they happen to be.
You know, one of the YouTube videos you sent over really hammered that point home.
Oh, yeah. Which one?
It was this guy, I can't remember his name,
Yeah.
but he was going on about how companies need to stop obsessing over activity
Yeah.
and start valuing results.
It's got a problem.
He said that constant monitoring just leads to micromanagement.
Right.
And it kills employee engagement.
I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling of being watched constantly.
Oh, absolutely. It's suffocating.
Just makes you feel like you're not trusted.
Right.
And in a world where remote work is becoming increasingly viable, it just makes good business sense to focus on what people produce,
Yeah.
not how many hours they spend physically in the office.
Results over hours. I like it.
That same YouTuber also brought up the importance of psychological safety.
Oh, yeah. That's crucial.
He argued that if employees are afraid to speak their minds
Right.
or take risks because they fear judgment, then innovation dies.
Yeah. That's a recipe for stagnation.
Do you think that's something companies are actively trying to cultivate? Especially in this new world of hybrid work.
It has to be a priority.
Right.
I mean, if you want genuine collaboration, you need an environment where people feel comfortable sharing ideas,
Yeah.
even the ones that seem a little out there, a little crazy at first.
Exactly. You need that freedom to experiment.
And that takes trust,
Yeah.
open communication, and leadership
Yeah.
that encourages vulnerability.
Absolutely.
It sounds like creating a successful office in this new world is a pretty complex thing.
It's multifaceted.
You need the right space, the right technology,
Yeah.
but also a culture that prioritizes trust and autonomy.
It's like this delicate balancing act.
Right.
You need structure, but also flexibility.
Oh, yeah.
Opportunities for both individual focus and collaborative brainstorming.
Yeah, it's finding that sweet spot.
And you need to create this seamless experience that bridges the physical and the virtual worlds.
That's a tough one, I think.
Not easy, but when you get it right, the payoff could be huge.
Okay, so let's say you're a leader, maybe a CEO or a manager, and you're grappling with this whole RTO situation.
Right.
What are some practical steps you can take to create a work environment that actually works for everyone,
Yeah.
not just the folks who live a stone's throw from the office?
Well, I think the first and most important step is to actually involve your employees.
Okay,
Ask them what they need, what they want.
so often that gets overlooked.
Don't assume you know what's best for everyone.
Right.
Conduct surveys, hold focus groups, have one-on-one conversations.
Yeah, get that feedback loop going.
The more you understand your employees' needs and preferences,
Yeah,
the better equipped you'll be to create a workspace that truly supports them.
it makes sense, right? It's like designing a house for a family.
Exactly.
You wouldn't just draw up blueprints without asking them how they actually live.
Exactly. You need their input.
So once you've gathered that feedback, what's next?
Yeah.
Did you just ditch all the cubicles and bring in ping pong tables?
Well, that might help boost morale, but it's not the whole solution.
Right.
The goal is to create a space that's inviting,
Okay.
versatile, and conducive to both individual and collaborative work.
Okay.
Think breakout rooms, huddle spaces, even outdoor areas
I like that.
where people can choose how and where they work best.
Giving them choices.
Choices and options, that's key.
And we can't forget about technology.
Oh, absolutely not.
We're living in a world where these virtual tools have become indispensable.
Yeah.
So how do you integrate those seamlessly into the physical workspace?
I think investing in top-notch technology is crucial.
Okay.
High-quality video conferencing systems,
Right.
collaborative whiteboards, even things like virtual reality tools that can enhance remote collaboration.
Okay, so we're getting really futuristic now.
The goal is to create a truly hybrid experience
Yeah.
where people can connect and contribute seamlessly regardless of their physical location.
So we've talked about the physical space, the
Yeah.
technology, but what about that less tangible element, the culture? How do you build trust, autonomy, and psychological safety, especially when you have some people working remotely and others in the office?
I think that's where leadership really comes into play. Leaders need to set the tone and model the behaviors they want to see in their teams.
Okay, lead by example.
It's about shifting away from that whole presenteeism mindset,
Right.
from this idea that face time equals productivity,
Yeah.
and instead focusing on outcomes and results.
No more butts and seats metrics.
Exactly.
So it's all about trusting your employees
Yeah,
to manage their own time and deliver their best work, regardless of where they are.
absolutely.
And that requires clear communication,
Yes.
clear expectations,
Yes.
and a culture of accountability that's based on results, not just visibility.
Right. You need to be able to measure what matters.
You know, one of the articles we read mentioned the importance of establishing clear communication guidelines
Okay.
for different types of interaction,
Yeah, that makes sense.
like using text messages only for urgent matters,
Right.
while project updates are handled through a designated platform.
So everything has its place.
Do you think that level of structure is helpful, or could it become too rigid?
I think it can be incredibly helpful, especially in a hybrid environment
Right.
where people are juggling multiple communication channels.
Email, Slack, text. Oh my.
It can get overwhelming.
Yeah.
Clear guidelines can reduce confusion and overwhelm.
Okay.
It's not about micromanaging communication, but rather ensuring that information flows efficiently
Right.
and that everyone knows the most effective way to connect with their colleagues,
So you're streamlining communication.
making it work for everyone.
What about those more spontaneous interactions that people often miss when they're not in the office?
Okay.
You know, the water cooler chats, the casual brainstorming sessions.
Right, the unplanned moments.
The ones that lead to unexpected breakthroughs.
Those are harder to replicate virtually, for sure.
Can you even replicate that virtually?
It's definitely a challenge, but I don't think it's impossible.
Okay.
Companies are experimenting with things like virtual water coolers,
Virtual water coolers. I like that.
online social events, even dedicated Slack channels for non-work-related chatter.
Okay, so creating those virtual spaces for connection.
The intentionality is key.
It's not just about replicating the old ways of doing things, right?
Right.
It's about finding creative new ways to connect and collaborate in this hybrid world.
And that requires a shift in mindset,
Yeah,
both for leaders and employees.
for everyone involved.
It's about embracing the possibilities of this new world of work,
Right.
rather than trying to recreate the old one in a virtual space.
Okay, so we've got the space, the technology, the culture.
Yeah.
Is there anything else leaders should be keeping in mind as they try to navigate this new world of work?
One thing that's often overlooked is the importance of individualization,
Okay.
recognizing that every employee has different needs and preferences when it comes to work.
We're not all wired the same.
Some people thrive in a bustling office environment.
Yeah, I love the energy.
Others crave quiet solitude.
Yeah, the peace and quiet.
Some are early birds, others are night owls.
It's all about finding what works for you.
So it's not about creating one perfect work environment,
Right.
but rather providing options and flexibility so everyone can do their best work in their own way.
I like that, options and flexibility.
And when employees are happy and productive, the organization as a whole benefits.
Everyone wins.
Exactly. It's a win-win.
But what about those employees who actually prefer being in the office?
Okay?
How do you make sure they don't feel like they're getting the short end of the stick?
That's a valid concern.
Yeah.
I think it's about creating an office environment that's so inviting,
Okay.
so engaging, so well-equipped
Yeah.
that people choose to be there.
Okay, they're not forced. They want to be there.
Provide comfortable workspaces,
Mhm.
amenities that enhance their day, and plenty of opportunities for social interaction and team building.
So instead of feeling obligated to be in the office,
Right.
they actually want to be there.
It should be a destination, not just a default.
I love that, making the office a destination.
It should be a place where people feel inspired, energized, and connected.
It sounds like we're talking about a pretty radical shift in how we think about work.
It's a paradigm shift.
But if we can pull it off, it could lead to a more fulfilling, productive, and even happier work experience for everyone.
It's an ambitious goal,
Yeah.
but the potential rewards are immense.
Huge.
And the companies that embrace this new way of working,
Okay.
the ones that prioritize both people and performance,
Yeah.
they'll be the ones who thrive in this evolving world.
So far, we've mostly been talking about the big picture, the macro trends and challenges facing companies.
Right, the bird's eye view.
But let's zoom in a bit, focus on the individuals,
Okay,
the people navigating this RTO upheaval.
let's get personal.
What are the real-world struggles they're facing? And what advice can we offer to help them through this? It's one thing to talk about flexible work arrangements and collaboration hubs,
Yeah.
but it's another thing entirely to be on the receiving end of an RTO mandate that completely upends your life.
Absolutely, it can feel like a personal attack.
It's like having the rug pulled out from under you.
Yeah?
You've built a life around remote work,
Yeah.
and suddenly the rules have changed.
It can be disorienting.
So what advice do you have for those folks who are feeling frustrated,
Yeah.
anxious, or even angry about being forced back to the office?
I think the first thing is to acknowledge those feelings.
Okay.
It's okay to be upset,
Yeah.
to grieve the loss of the work life you've created.
You're allowed to feel those emotions.
Don't try to suppress those emotions. Let yourself feel them.
Okay.
But then, once you've processed those initial feelings,
Yeah.
it's time to shift into problem-solving mode.
Okay, so what are some practical steps people can take?
Right.
Should they just accept their fate and start packing their lunch bags?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
The first step is to understand your company's policy
Okay.
and your rights as an employee.
Know where you stand.
Are there any exceptions or accommodations that might apply to your situation?
Like what?
For example, if you have a medical condition that makes commuting difficult or dangerous, you might be able to request a remote work arrangement.
Okay, so if there are extenuating circumstances,
Right.
it's also important to document any personal circumstances that might justify an exception to the RTO mandate,
Yeah. Gather your evidence.
whether it's a childcare issue, an elder care situation, or even just the fact that you've moved further away from the office during the pandemic.
Be prepared to advocate for your needs.
Okay, but what if the company's policy is ironclad? No room for exceptions.
Right.
What then? Should people just bite the bullet and go back to the office?
Even if there aren't formal exceptions, I
Yeah.
think it's still worth having a conversation
Right.
with your manager or HR representative.
So don't just suffer in silence.
No, speak out.
Make your voice heard.
Explain your concerns clearly and calmly,
Okay.
and try to come to a mutually beneficial solution.
So maybe there's a compromise to be found?
Potentially. Yeah.
Like a hybrid arrangement or a delayed start date?
It's all about communication.
Right. So even if it seems hopeless, try to have that conversation.
Exactly.
But let's be real, not all companies are going to be receptive to these conversations.
Yeah, some are going to be completely inflexible.
Yeah.
And in those cases, individuals might face a tough decision.
The stay or go dilemma.
Exactly.
Tough one.
And there's no easy answer.
Right.
It's a personal decision that depends on individual circumstances, values, and priorities.
There's no right or wrong answer.
No.
It's about weighing the pros and cons and figuring out what's best for you and your well-being.
And it's also about recognizing that you have options.
Okay.
You don't have to stay in a job that makes you miserable.
There are other fish in the sea, so to speak.
Exactly.
You know, we came across this YouTube video where this guy was encouraging people to always be applying for jobs.
Oh,
Interesting.
even if they're not actively looking to leave their current position,
Yeah.
his point was that it's good to have options, just in case.
That's not bad advice.
Right.
The job market is constantly evolving.
Especially these days.
It's never a bad idea to know what's out there
Keep your ear to the ground.
and to keep your skills and resume up to date.
Right. Stay sharp.
You might be surprised at the opportunities you find.
And if you do decide to leave your job,
Yeah.
remember to do it gracefully.
Yeah, don't burn any bridges.
You never know when you might cross paths with someone from your former company.
It's a small world.
And now, more than ever, it's a world where flexibility, autonomy, and employee well-being are highly valued.
Those are the new currencies.
So don't settle for a work environment that doesn't meet your needs.
There are plenty of companies out there that are embracing this new world of work
Right.
and creating amazing opportunities for their employees.
So do your research, know your worth, and advocate for what you deserve.
You hold the power.
You absolutely do. So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
Yeah, we have.
We've explored the data, the arguments, the psychological quirks, the real-world struggles, and even some heartwarming stories.
We've even had a few laughs along the way.
That's right. It's important to find humor in even the most challenging situations.
I couldn't agree more.
But now it's time for the ultimate question.
Okay, hit me.
What does the future of work hold?
The crystal ball question.
If only we had all the answers.
Right. But we can make some educated guesses
Yeah,
based on the trends we're seeing
the data we're analyzing.
and the conversations we're having.
Exactly.
All right, let's put on our futurist hats and see what we can come up with.
I'm game if you are.
Okay, so let's dust off those crystal balls, try to peer into the future and envision the workplace of, say, 2030.
Okay, 2030.
What do you see happening? Is the office as we know it, like, gone, vanished?
I think we can safely say that the traditional 9 to 5, everyone at their desk model, yeah, that's fading away.
Good riddance, right?
It's just not cutting it anymore. In a world where work can literally happen from anywhere.
So what takes its place? Is it everyone working from home in their pajamas?
I don't think it'll be that simple.
Right.
It's going to be much more fluid, more dynamic.
Okay.
We'll see a surge in those hybrid arrangements.
Yeah, hybrid seems to be winning.
The 4-day work week is going to gain some serious traction.
Okay, I can get behind that.
And we might even see some more radical models.
Like what?
Think results-only work environments, where you're judged solely on what you deliver, not on how or when you do it.
So it's like, as long as you get the job done, nobody cares if you're working from a beach in Bali.
Exactly.
It sounds like the workplace is finally catching up to the realities of modern life,
Right.
recognizing that people have, lives and responsibilities outside of work.
And technology is going to play a massive role in this whole transformation.
Okay, yeah. Technology always does.
We're already seeing the impact of tools like Zoom and Slack.
All right.
But imagine a world where virtual and augmented reality become commonplace in the workplace.
Okay, now we're talking.
The metaverse.
So are we talking about attending these virtual meetings that feel just as real as being in the same room?
Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
Or even collaborating on projects in a shared virtual space.
It's like mind-blowing.
Imagine putting on a headset
Yeah.
and suddenly you're in this virtual office with colleagues from all over the world.
Hi.
You're brainstorming on a digital whiteboard or even manipulating 3D models together.
It sounds both exciting and a little bit terrifying.
It's a brave new world.
What happens to the traditional office in this scenario? Do those physical spaces just disappear?
I don't think they'll vanish entirely,
Okay.
but their purpose will definitely shift.
How so?
The offices of the future, they'll be less about individual workspaces
Okay.
and more about fostering collaboration and connection.
So more like collaborative hubs or innovation labs than the cubicle farms of the past?
Exactly.
I like the sound of that.
And I think we'll see this rise of what I call nomadic workspaces.
Nomadic workspaces.
Co-working spaces that pop up in different cities, even different countries,
Correct.
allowing people to work from wherever they want, whenever they want.
So you can be a digital nomad and still have that office vibe?
It's all about flexibility and choice.
This whole nomadic workspace thing is really intriguing.
It is.
It speaks to a future where work is more integrated into our lives
Yeah.
rather than this separate compartmentalized thing.
I think that's the direction we're heading in.
But, no future is without its challenges, right?
Of course not. There are always bumps in the road.
So as we embrace this more flexible, tech-driven world of work, what are some of the potential downsides we need to be wary of?
One risk is increased isolation and loneliness
Right.
if people aren't connecting in person regularly.
So it's like the pendulum swings too far in the other direction.
We need to be intentional about combating that,
Okay.
create opportunities for social interaction, even in a virtual world.
Build those virtual water coolers.
Exactly.
And then there's the whole burnout issue.
Oh yeah, burnout is a huge concern.
When work can happen anywhere, anytime.
It's hard to switch off.
Right, the boundaries blur.
We need to develop strategies for managing our time and energy,
Okay.
protecting our personal lives,
Yeah.
and prioritizing our well-being.
So flexibility can't come at the expense of our mental and physical health.
Absolutely not.
What about the potential for a widening of the digital divide?
Right.
What happens to those who don't have access to the latest technology or high-speed internet?
That's a critical issue that we can't ignore.
Yeah.
We need to ensure that everyone has equal access to the tools and resources they need to participate in this new world of work.
It sounds like we're not just talking about the future of work.
It's bigger than that.
We're talking about the future of society.
How we work impacts how we live, how we connect, how we build a fair and equitable world.
It's all interconnected.
And as we navigate this uncharted territory, we need to be thoughtful, intentional, and compassionate.
Yeah.
Prioritize the well-being of individuals while also fostering innovation and progress.
It's a balancing act.
It's a tall order, but I have faith in our ability to figure it out.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
if you could give one piece of advice to our listeners as they navigate this ever-evolving world of work,
Okay.
what would it be?
Embrace change, be adaptable, be curious, and never stop learning and growing.
I love that. Words to live by.
The future of work isn't something that's happening to us.
Right.
It's something we're creating together.
So let's make it a future that we can all be proud of.
I'm with you on that.
We've covered so much ground today.
A lot of ground.
From the nitty-gritty of RTO mandates to those big, audacious possibilities of a reimagined future of work.
It's been quite a journey.
But it's important to remember that this isn't just about abstract ideas.
Right.
It's about real people and their lives.
The human element.
Exactly. So as you go about your day, whether you're commuting to an office, working from your couch, or dreaming of that nomadic pop-up workspace, remember that you have a voice and a choice in shaping the future of work.
You have agency,
Don't be afraid to use it.
and we can't wait to see what you create.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Keep those brains buzzing, and we'll catch you next time.